So I was thinking about taking a bit of a detour from the content I usually make and making a little bit of content on some other things. With everything going on in the world, I guess I'm a little worried of what could come in the future. Now, in a sense, I kind of feel bad saying that, given with everything going on in the world, there are plenty of people long beyond the worrying stage and well deep into the dealing with crap stage of things going badly. Um, So I guess that said, I was thought about working on some content that maybe that would cover some things that might be useful to know if things get a little dicey. I will probably cover a few topics, of which I will have varying levels of competency, and it'll be much more in the style of this is what I know, and this is what you need to research a little more into it and decide how or if you will proceed from there. Anyway, with that all said, the first thing I thought I'd talk about, which I am somewhat experienced in, is networking and electronic communication and technology in general. Today, I figured I'd provide you with some basic information on how to communicate with friends and family, even if systems or technology is a little bit disrupted. And I'll provide you with some basic tools and how-to for a few concepts that would probably be useful, regardless of what's going on. I'll probably break it down in a bit of a disorganized bullet point type fashion, so I guess, yeah, you have been warned. Anyway, as always, power outages, natural disasters, human-made disasters, small-scale cyber attacks, and even simple configuration issues like Canada's recent outages can all disrupt your ability to use electronics and communicate with them. Obviously, with the way the last few years have been going, depending on where you are, there could be everything from larger scale cyber attacks, invasions, and even the occasional nation imploding. So this will likely be even more relevant as time goes on. The first thing I would like to mention is simply that if one thing goes down, try something else. Obviously, that would be super obvious. But even on an unrelated note, a while back, Microsoft Teams went down for a few hours, and it seriously disrupted me at work. If you regularly use stuff like text messages or WhatsApp or something like that, and they go down, then just try everything else. It could be email, other social media sites, or even if all you can do is chat on a Minecraft server, just using that. Just try everything if something's being disrupted. Anyway, moving slightly to less obvious, on a bit of a tangent, if anything electronic goes down, a lot of banking related stuff will probably go down. So cash on hand, just a little bit to get you through any disruptions, like a lot of Canadians found out, like last month or whatever it was, is also definitely important to keep in mind. I guess that's the end of my tangent here. The next thing I thought I'd bring up is the app called Briar Messaging service. And if you're familiar with my much less practical video about building the internet from scratch in a zombie apocalypse or something like that, you would probably be familiar with it. See here, Briar is decentralized. So in this case, most messengers have a centralized server, and all the devices go to that server to receive or send messages. Or Briar is completely peer-to-peer, so you can have direct connections between the peers, and you can also have, if you're in a group with multiple people, you can send group messages out, and it can bounce from one person to the next. So, and this can go through the internet, just straight from one device to another, and it can also actually be done through Bluetooth and LAN. So it does actually give you a bit of a benefit if internet gets disrupted. You can kind of get a mesh network of sorts. Now, obviously, it isn't foolproof because at the end of the day, someone needs to either have internet or you have to have a chain of in-person communication. But it is definitely a very cool tool, and if things get disrupted, it would, because of its decentralized nature, it would be one of the very last things to actually go down. Speaking of messengers, generally speaking, apps will fare a lot better than web interfaces when it comes to unreliable connections, be it a messenger app, email, or something completely different. You will likely find that an app is way more resilient if internet is disrupted or congested, but not completely down. For example, if you're using email, you can load into the app, and the app will probably already have a local copy of all your emails. You can compose an email even without internet, and once you hit send, it will continue to try, and it will send it out and be completely good. Compare that to web interface, where you have to have internet to load the website. You got to sign in. You got to load the web page. You got to most likely load the page to compose the email, and then you got to go and you got to hit send. And if at any point it gets disrupted, you got to start the whole process again once you get internet back. In that case, apps would be a lot more reliable than a web interface. So if you have something important like messengers or email or any other app that follows a similar structure, it might actually be useful to have an app installed instead of just a web interface, which sort of goes against what I would usually talk about, since I'm usually talking about privacy, and installing less apps is always good. But in this case, if you have an important service and you're worried it might get disrupted and it has anything of a structure like a messenger or an email app or something like that, you're definitely going to want to use the app and not rely on a website. Continuing on, a very similar concept to the apps, but this time specifically having to do with my cell phone here, or anybody's cell phone. In the event a cell network is congested or disrupted in any way, a text is way more likely to work than a phone call or cellular data. You can obviously send a text on your phone, and if it takes 2 hours, but eventually your phone gets a connection and it sends out the message, then you're all good and the message has been sent. But obviously, if you're on a call and you lose connection, the call drops and that's that. And of course, in addition, texts use way less data, so you're much better off trying to sneak it through a congested network than doing something that requires a lot more bandwidth. Similarly, again, carrying on with the phones, oftentimes, even if the power is out, many cell towers have backup sources of power. And beyond that, a cell tower is way higher in priority compared to residential or non-essential businesses when it comes to power rationing and stuff like that. So even if the power is out, you may very well likely be able to make a phone call or send a text, even if there's no power going to your house and your internet appears to be dead. And last, one last tidbit on phones here, at least in the United States, and I would assume in most other jurisdictions as well, you're able to call 911 regardless of your plan. That also means if the cell network that you bought a plan on is down and your phone is showing no bars, you may still be able to make a call to 911 using another cell network. And beyond that, obviously, if you have no plan whatsoever, you can still make the call. And again, I would assume that this is similar in other jurisdictions, obviously with their own respective emergency numbers. But anyway, taking a quick step away from phones, I'd like to move on to radios. Obviously, there's your standard wind-up radio. Allows you to receive FM data, which allows you to receive FM radio and hear what's going on, even if things are down or you don't know exactly what's going on. Beyond that, there are also two-way radios. They come in a variety of different bands and styles and all that sort of stuff. Some require licenses, some don't. Obviously, it varies a ton from jurisdiction to jurisdiction, but you can go anywhere from, right about a mile or two to probably a good 10, 15 miles on some of the strongest in best circumstances. And some radios, you can even dial into a repeater and go way farther than you'd expect. But regardless, either one can keep you up to date if things, if the power's out and you can't get information from your normal sources. And some of them allow you to communicate with others within a near distance, allowing you to share information and hopefully keep up to date on what's going on. And moving on from radios, another tool that I thought I'd quickly mention here is actually been on my wrist the whole time. Simple watch here. This one's a stock Commandersky. It's not too important. Obviously, it tells the time. I can use this to act as a timer. You can even use it as a makeshift compass. However, if you are worried about things getting a bit chaotic. Honestly, this simple Casio watch would probably be the best. As you can see, it's got the date. I think that's correct. Yes, it is. Got the date, time. It's got a stopwatch, alarm clock, a timer. A backlight here. I think that's about it. Maybe I'm forgetting something. Yeah, plenty of tools. 10-year battery life. I have worn both of these a lot, and they've worked well. Obviously, there's a million different choices, but you can obviously use them again beyond the additional tools. Just timers, dates, all that sort of stuff. Just being able to tell time alone is useful. If you need to document something that happened, or keep track of what's going on, or how late the sun's going to go down, or something like that. Also, in line with digital communications, you can do as I have in the past, and when your cell phone runs out of power and the clock is off, but you're in a concrete building, so you can't get the new time for the cell phones, can't get the new time from the cell phone towers, you can set the time manually to the time on your watch, so you can get the two-factor authentication keys to display the right ones and enter that to verify you are who you are, stuff like that. Just one more useful feature there. And last, in terms of electronic communication here, I thought I would cover satellites. Just very quickly mention them at least. Originally, I wrote this kind of script outline, and I was just going to say that obviously satellite internet exists, and it works regardless of the infrastructure on the ground, but it's also expensive, and if the infrastructure on the ground is not working, you have to have a source of power, which has to be fairly strong. So you can buy like a solar generator, which is just a big battery bank with solar panels, or a real generator. It has to be a decent generator, since most cheap generators are not safe to use with electronics. But that's a bit out of my price range and probably a lot of other people. Actually, however, found out recently that the latest version of the iPhone will likely have a certain degree of cell phone connectivity, just enough to contact emergency services with. So I guess keep an eye out for that. If you use Apple devices, it will probably be a useful tool, and maybe other cell phone companies will copy that. I guess one more useful piece of tech in the arsenal never hurts. And of course, speaking of requiring power here, you have a couple options here. Just like I mentioned with satellites, you can go all fancy and spend $500 on a fancy generator or solar panels or something like that. That's probably a little bit out of the price range for a lot of people, and especially outside of the price range of anything that you might be tempted to get, because I mentioned it in the video. That said, you do have a couple options here. Obviously, if the power is unreliable, you can just charge up all your devices, as well as USB power banks. Sorry, I seem to have said it somewhere else. So you can obviously charge up a USB power bank and a phone and laptops and all that sort of stuff. You can also take a laptop and charge your phone or another device with it. Obviously, you'll lose power overall because you're running the laptop while you're charging the device, but most likely, if you charge your phone with the laptop, you'll get more electronic time overall, because the phone's is probably going to require way less power than a laptop, and also probably having a little more functionality, at least in terms of what I'm talking about in this video anyway. On that, you can usually charge USB through a car. You can generally charge it from your car, whether the car is running or not. However, if the alternator is not running and you're just draining your battery with a dead battery, and then that's a whole host of new problems. So you definitely want to be careful with that. And finally, there are USB power banks with mini solar panels. Now, I know I just mentioned, super expensive solar panels. This one is definitely not. Probably cost me, probably $25 pre-pandemic or something like that. You get a pretty big USB power bank with a fair amount of solar capacity. So definitely enough to charge up a phone if you need to make an emergency call or something like that, but the power was out. And then beyond beyond that, I thought I would just cover a few apps and stuff like that. And changing the topics again, I thought I would quickly cover a few different apps and tools and stuff like that that you might find handy. The first one of them would be Ozemand. You may have heard me talk about it before. It's just an offline maps program which allows you to do most of your standard map stuff, but obviously doesn't require an internet connection. Super handy, especially because GPS data does not require cell reception or internet or anything like that. So as long as you got the offline maps, it'll work perfectly fine. And I mean, of course, physical maps work as well, but I would always prefer a GPS uh, over a big atlas or something like that. That's kind of my last thing I would go to. Um, Beyond that, there are tools like Equate, which allow you to do manual math sort of stuff and conversions and all that. There are, I apologize, there's tools like TrailSense, which provide a whole bunch of outdoorsy style tools, everything from tracing your steps um, to sort of turning your phone into a makeshift metal detector, completely random stuff like that. Um, Obviously, the ability to take notes or take photos of important documents or IDs or preload that sort of stuff onto your device is useful. And in doing that, tools like AES Crypt are a handy way to encrypt the data so it doesn't fall into wrong hands. But yeah, and then in addition to personal data like that, might not hurt to have stashed on your phone. Everything from copies of Wikipedia or Wikimed on the KeyWix app, ebooks, or even the app named Survival Manual, which just has a whole bunch of random information that would, I guess, hopefully come in handy if you were trying to survive. All that sort of stuff without requiring internet could be useful. Anyway, these random apps only kind of scratch the surface at that stuff that came to mind and could be useful if you're researching apps like that. Anyway, I guess that's about everything. I apologize for the odd style of this video and its unscripted nature and just the disorganization. But again, I guess I was more aiming to provide a whole bunch of random pieces of information that might be useful, unless it's certainly a compelling story. Anyway, I hope nobody watching this needs it. But I guess with everything that's going on in the world, it's probably becoming more and more useful every day. Yeah, you're always welcome to reach out to me if you have any questions about any sort of stuff like this. Otherwise, again, stay safe and I hope you enjoyed.